The Revolution Podcast, episode 36. Feedback for Children of Men.
Hi, you're listening to Revolution Podcast. This is Maria Howell as Grace on Revolution.
Golden Spiral Media presents The Revolution Podcast. Support for The Revolution Podcast is provided by listeners like you and our affiliation with HostGator. Not only does HostGator host over 8 million domains and provide powerful, reliable hosting, HostGator is environmentally friendly. Learn more about HostGator and their renewable energy credits by visiting goldenspiralmedia.com/HostGator today. Welcome back to the Revolution Podcast, everybody. I'm Daryl.
Power on.
Hey, are you still beating me up for my lame-o sign-off from the last podcast? That was so 3 days ago. Come on, man.
But we're traveling back to the past.
Yes.
I'm Jeremy, guys.
Yes. What was your lame-o sign-off last time?
It wasn't that good, but...
It was better than mine.
Not saying much.
Look, mine was inspired by a friend of mine who owns an IT business, and his logo is the power symbol, and his slogan is Power On. I was trying to give a little shout-out to my friend Chris.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So...
Likely excuse.
You can call it lame if you want to.
Apparently Yogabon liked it.
Thank you, Yogabon. Thank you, Yogabon. Gold star for you. I appreciate that. Even though you're probably lying to me to make me feel better, I still appreciate it. All right, we're glad that you guys have joined us for this week's episode as we take the feedback that we received for the Revolution episode entitled Children of Men. You were way off on what this was going to be about, by the way. Did we talk about that last episode?
I don't think we did, but...
Let's not talk about my lame-o sign-off. Let's talk about your lame-o theory that this was going to give us the answer to the identity of Monroe and the Monroe's son and Charlie's father. That turned out to be pretty far from the truth.
It did, because she's Monroe's daughter. Not really. I do not support that.
No, the Children of Men actually came from... I think there's a book that we're going to get sent in some feedback that's going to be mentioned. I think Barb mentioned... I should stop attributing things to Barb. It seems like when I say Barb, I mess things up immediately after. But somebody mentions that, and then... I think also it reflects the crowd of people that were in the tower. It was them, and like they brought in their children, and then they were quite a group. So and some of them looked younger than 15, so I'm guessing they had some children while they were down there.
Right.
That was kind of what I thought it reflected.
Yeah, I agree. That's pretty much what I picked up. And I mean, maybe you can apply it to Jason and Tom in their relationship.
I'm sorry, Jason and Tom? I blanked out on what you were saying there.
Well, like the Children of Men. I mean, you get Jason kind of sticking up for his dad for the first time.
Perhaps.
Ever.
Perhaps. Ever. All right, well, let's get right into the feedback that we got sent in to us this week.
I can't believe you just did that.
This is why you need to join the live show, folks. That was some white boy dancing right there. Oh, yes. The chat room, we're on a major lag tonight, so we're probably like 3 or 4 minutes behind. Maybe not quite that much. Yes. Actually, some of them are getting it right now. Wow, that was much faster than I thought they would get it. I haven't gotten it on my video screen yet, but
yeah, it doesn't look that good.
Oh, I'm sure it doesn't. I'm sure it looks terrible. That'll be in the YouTube video, by the way.
Please don't watch it, guys.
Just shield yourself before you turn it on.
Just listen to us. That's all we're good for.
That's right.
We're face for radio, and we're not even good enough for that.
Okay, well, let's get it kicked off with... we have a couple of feedbacks that came in this week. One is about Clue from last week, and the other one is kind of it came in before this week's episode, but not necessarily about Clue. But this first one is about Clue, and it comes in from our friend Yo-Yo.
Hi, this is Yo-Yo from Kansas City. I'm leaving feedback on Revolution, the last episode called Clue. Couple of different comments. I always end up calling late because I don't see the episode until a few days later. But first of all, I agree that it seems a little bit gratuitous to have Jim as such an important character and have a whole episode devoted to him and then kill him off. But this is not the first time we've seen that from this group. With Lost, I mean, they had a whole entire season that was all about the people in the back of the plane, and yet every single one of them pretty much died. So it's not an unusual thing. I don't like it, but we've certainly seen it before. I think they just do it to remind us, like Jeremy said, like that any character can be killed at any time, but it also seems like they perhaps don't think too far ahead on characters that are, quote, extra. So, yeah, it's a little upsetting. Now, I'm sure I'm not the first one to think this, but I'm kind of, I want to go ahead and say it so it can be in the records just in case I'm right. I think the last scene of the last seconds for the episode, season finale for this year, until the next season, is going to be the lights coming back on. I'm sure I'm not the first one to think it, but I think it's going to be a big shot of all the lights turning on all around the world, and woo, everybody's got power. So I just wanted to go ahead and say it so I can have it on the record. Thanks again for the show, guys. Bye.
So let me get this straight, Jeremy. Did she just say that the last scene was going to be power on? Huh?
Yes, I think
Doesn't
she did.
seem quite so lame now, does it, Jeremy?
It still seems lame, Daryl.
All right, what'd you think of her feedback?
Well, the power coming on at the end of this season, at the very last thing, I think I'm going to have to say that's going to be Monroe finally biting a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or a knife, or a dagger, or a nanite, or something.
I would side with Yo-Yo before I would side with you.
You're right, he'll be dead before that.
No, shut up. No, actually, you might be right. I just mean that I think that would be a better cliffhanger than Monroe getting a bullet.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool if they almost did it like in reverse, like they did in the pilot, like cars that are on the highway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, lights would start popping. You know, that sort of thing. That'd be kind of cool.
Okay.
Except I
So
don't
all
think
they would have to do is reverse the pilot.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that would be lame if they just did that and just ran it in reverse. But I mean, some of the elements that we saw
Mm-hmm.
where the power is
So
restored.
the plane takes off.
No. All right, fine. She also gave you validation on what you said last week for the purpose of these people dying. Is
I
it
love
makes
validation.
it seem like anybody is vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's true, but it still seems like anybody but the main core characters are vulnerable. But Lost, she's right about Lost. You know, you reached a point where you knew Jack and Kate and probably Sawyer and Hurley weren't going to die. You
Well,
know?
technically, I mean,
Look, when the finale rolls around, everybody is fair game.
right.
But at the first season, you know, when Boone died, it kind of started a
Weren't they
domino
already
effect.
dead? That's kind of what I'm saying.
No, they weren't already dead. If you
Oh.
think that the people on Lost were already dead, then just don't even talk to me about
all right,
Lost.
All right.
Oh my word! You people
Power
think
off.
that they were dead the whole time. Thank you, Yo-Yo, for your call. I'm sorry that you validated Jeremy. We'll talk later about that.
Thank you, Yo-Yo.
All right, let's move on to the next one. This comes in from Chris in New York. Not necessarily about last week's episode, more of just some observations, but it did come in before Children of Men.
All right.
Hey, Daryl and Jeremy, or Jeremy and Daryl. This is Chris sending in feedback from New York, and of course, I'm shouting out to all my fellow listeners of the Revolution podcast as well. I have to say that it's funny because Monroe is obviously the big baddie of the show. I don't like him. I mean, he's a bad person. I mean, look at all the terrible things he's done, and he doesn't even really seem to have any guilt over what he does. You know, so I don't like him at all, but there's just something about him that when he's on the screen, I know that I'm watching a good show. You know, I think it's the actor. I think it's what David Lyons brings to the character. When he's on the screen, he commands that screen, and I just think that that speaks to the actor. You know, he's very charismatic. I would say the same thing really about Giancarlo Esposito. You know, he does a very good job of portraying Tom, And he's another person that's not really all that likable, but I like having him on the show. So, he's really funny sometimes, too. He tells Miles that Foster wants a representative for this stupid watermelon mission of yours. And the only other thing that I want to talk about is that I'm just stunned by all of the previous 24 actors and actresses that we have been seeing on Revolution. I won't name all of them because there are so many, but I will say that, oddly enough, all 3 of Jack Bauer's major love interests on 24 have now been on Revolution. You have Leslie Hope, who is playing Foster, and she was Terry Bauer on 24. She was Jack's wife. You have Kim Raver, who of course is playing Tom's wife, and she was Audrey Raines on 24. And you had Annie Wershing in, which episode was it? It's slipping my mind, but it was the episode where the woman with the auburn hair, the character's name is slipping my mind as well, which makes me feel like a really bad revolutionary, but she was the one that had a relationship both with Monroe and Miles, and she ended up getting killed by the end of the episode. It was a recent episode. But yeah, she was Renee Walker on 24, and so all 3 of these actresses have played love interests of Jack's on 24, so I'm excited about the finale. Should be a good episode. Finales usually are good, and even the fall finale I thought was really, really good and could have even worked as a season finale, so I'm really looking forward to this. Dark Tower. Alright, so thanks a lot for listening to me, guys. I really appreciate it. That's pretty much it for now. Bye-bye.
Alrighty, thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Good.
He agrees about Monroe and David Lyons.
Yes.
And just, how commanding he is. But at the same time, like me, he doesn't like the character. Well, he doesn't seem to like the character. He's guilty. He doesn't even care. But I think he definitely called in before the episode because he has no guilt, and then in this episode
that's right, and that's why I pointed that out, because clearly in this episode he did, he has guilt. Yeah. And we sang the praises of David Lyons last episode. I knew that some of the folks had been on 24. I've never seen 24. Have you ever watched any of 24?
Yes.
Yeah. They're bringing it back.
Yeah, I heard that rumor, but I'm not following it until it's actually on TV.
Okay, I think it's a done deal.
Really?
Yeah, no, okay. I'm 90% sure it's a done deal. Chat room, if you guys know, let us know. He was having a hard time thinking of her name as well, and I called her Annie in the last episode, and I bet you I got that from Chris because I had just listened to his feedback a little while earlier today.
Okay.
Annie Wershing is the actress's name, and Emma was the character name, and she was the mother of Monroe's son.
Right. Yeah, I actually missed her. I think I pointed out at one point Foster, and then we all knew Tom's wife. So
right.
Emma slipped past me.
And they're saying, and of course, like we just said, Chris sent this in before this week's episode, but in the chat room they're also saying the guy who played Dan in this episode is also from 24.
Okay. Dan is the
leader of the Tower people.
Right, yeah. I've seen him in a lot of places.
Yes.
He's almost always like a military leader or a general or something.
He's got that look about him, doesn't he?
And that voice. He's very commanding.
Yeah, very, very much so. Well, cool, Chris. It's great to hear from you. Chris called in all the time for the Fringe podcast. He's called in a couple of times for Revolution. We just have one episode left this season. Love to hear from you again, though, Chris. Thanks for calling in. Let's get into some feedback about this week's episode from a new caller, first-time caller, and his name is Colin.
This is Colin in Hawaii with comments on the Revolution episode Children of Men. I must say I was blown away. I had the distinct feeling what we were watching was important, but I couldn't believe how cliched and overwrought it was. So yes, I was blown away, but not in a good way. One of the things that has irritated me over the course of the last few episodes has been the sudden proliferation of power-inducing pendants. Weren't there supposed to be only 12? All of a sudden, they're all over the place. They get blown up in helicopters, blown up in tents, melted in acid, and we never seem to run out of the little things. It seemed like we had several more Star Wars homages. One outside the bunker door, and the other when Vader convinces his son to join him to overthrow the Emperor. Through most of the first half of the season, all we could do was complain about how whiny Charlie was, and I was constantly wondering whether Tracy Spiridakos had the acting chops to carry the show. Now, all she does is roll her eyes and follow the leader, and we, the audience, have no reason to pull for her character. And then there's Elizabeth Mitchell's character, who somehow manages to have better hair 15 years after the last blow dryer went dead than she did 5 days after the power outage. You know that saying about horseshoes and hand grenades? Maybe she should just throw a horseshoe at Monroe. She alternates between the best impression of Clint Eastwood in a female actress and someone on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Actually, come to think of it, David Lyons' character is the male version of Elizabeth Mitchell's character. And once again, during the slaughter of his men with futuristic Tommy guns, somehow Monroe survives unscathed. On the bright side, Aaron Pittman, who is a legend in these parts, had a great episode, uttering what must be the quote of the week. "I can with this book, you dick." Anyway, sorry for the negative feedback. I had such high expectations for this episode, but was let down scene after scene with these flaws that pulled me out of the story. If you think Charlie rolls her eyes a lot, I was literally pausing the TiVo to roll my eyes. Pausing because I didn't want to miss the next eye-rolling scene. Aloha from Colin in Hawaii, where we still have power.
I like the sign off. So he's with you. Look, and I'm not going to disagree that when we looked at it on the map, the globe, it looked like it was from Hawaii. All I was trying to say at the end of our last podcast was that they could have just been trying to. It was in the middle of the screen. It could have been representing Middle America, which is where the tower is located there in Colorado. But I am not moving off what we discovered or think we discovered in that it looked like it was out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, possibly Hawaii. So anyway, I like your sign off there, Colin. All right, so he did not like the episode at all. So where do we want to start with this? Well,
I mean, he feels that there's a lot of cliches, and that he's seeing a lot of the same thing over and over. I thought that was fair points. I mean, about Charlie, and she's always rolling her eyes. Yeah, she does, but again, she's becoming tougher. I'm still rooting for Charlie, and I still think that she has a lot of potential as a character, despite the fact that she hasn't really had a whole lot of speaking roles lately.
No, and I never saw her as the leading lady on the show. You know, she because of her age and inexperience, she's always been in a subordinate role, either to Miles or when she's around her mom. You know, although she's kind of had some angst against her mom, understandably so. So I still care about Charlie a lot. I'm just couldn't disagree more with him there. But his opinion is his opinion. He's certainly entitled to it.
He did point out that David Lyons is pretty much playing Rachel, which we kind of talked about how I think that they're very similar. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think that their, I guess, conflicts within themselves being the same is bad. I think it's going to be interesting to see if Monroe lives the way they diverge, because they'll be the same and then they'll change, or one will die and then the other one will continue on. But I don't know. He talked about also the pendants being almost too popular. I still feel I haven't actually I stopped keeping track.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've seen, or we have seen only 12 pendants.
No, we haven't seen more than 12.
So
now, what hasn't been explained is, I think the last time we counted, we had 9 that were left or 8 that were left, because Rachel had destroyed 3 or maybe 4. Tom has one. He took the one that came out of the helicopter.
Right.
They got that one from Sanborn from last week.
Right.
Now, it's reasonable to think that. Look, I think it's absolutely reasonable to think that Randall has almost every pendant.
Yeah.
At least a half a dozen pendants, because he was going out and rounding up people.
Right.
He rounded up Grace, the guy that Sanborn. He had taken Sanborn's pendant from him and stuff like that. So I think it's reasonable that Randall possessed at least half a dozen pendants.
Yeah, I agree.
And would use them as he saw fit. So did he leave one with Sanborn when he left Philadelphia? Sure, absolutely reasonable.
Right.
Would he have given one to power the drones? Sure, absolutely reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we haven't seen that outright. We have not seen explicitly that Randall had however many pendants, but I think it's absolutely reasonable to think that he had multiple pendants, and they have had reasonable explanations as to how they've wound up in their locations. They blew the one up this week, right? Tom and Jason didn't take the one from the amplifier. They blew it up. Am I right?
That was my understanding of it.
Yeah, because when the grenade went off, the power went off. They didn't take the pendant and then blow it off. Yeah. So that's minus another one. Now that one's been destroyed, I guess. So I don't think it's unreasonable, the pendants that we've seen and the way that they've been used. Hopefully, if the show's doing it right, they've got somebody on continuity on this. Lost did this really well with guns. I think I've talked about it before. That before Jack could get a gun, if he didn't have a gun, they had to figure out, they knew exactly how many guns were on the island and who owned them at any given time. And if Jack needed a gun for a scene, they needed to figure out a way to get a gun from someone to him, because there could not just be magically new guns appearing on the show. And if they're smart, they're doing this show that way too. There are 12. They know how many have been destroyed and how many are left, or they need to come up with a really believable way for there being more than 12, a.k.a. Randall created a bunch and nobody knew it or something like that.
Right.
And that could be true too.
Yeah, I definitely think he has the ability to, though I think Grace maybe created him to begin with, but I'm not positive about that.
No. She did.
Okay.
We got that this week.
All right. But I think the reason we're seeing so many of them pop up now is because they're not going to be so important next year. And that kind of leads on to what Yo-Yo said, and how either the power is going to get turned on at the end of this next episode, or something else is going to happen that we're going to see different uses for these items.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
But
I like that.
I think they're kind of phasing them out. I think it's just kind of, I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see.
Well, Colin, thank you for calling in. Hopefully we'll hear from you again, and hopefully you'll like the next episode better. I mean, look, I didn't like last week's episode, so I'm not going to rip on you for not liking this episode just because I did. You're entitled to your opinion, and it doesn't sound like you're done with the series. Just this episode, wore on you. Kind of like, sounds like for some of the same reasons that last week's wore on me. It was some of the same stuff we'd seen over and over again. So anyway, thank you for calling in. Good to hear from you, and let's move on. Let's see, who's next?
Jim.
Jim is next. I've got my outline off here. Okay, here's Jim.
Hey guys, Jim in Wisconsin. Well, we got about 5 or 6 hours till the podcast airs, and I'll probably need a half dozen takes to get through this without messing up too badly. But what the hell? Just another Tuesday, right? I really like that line by Miles. It's almost as if the writers were having fun with the show itself, seeing as how that type of day seems to happen a lot for our heroes. And though I had a few issues with it, I gave this episode 9.5 formally undisclosed locations. I overlooked the issues when formulating my rating, though, because I thought the rest of the episode was just that good. Tons of solid action, great twists and turns coming from characters I wasn't expecting, and an interesting heart-to-heart between Monroe and Rachel. As for those issues, here's what got me. First, the grenade scene to open the show went just as I suspected it would. However, to get a live grenade clear of the general area which you're currently occupying, wouldn't you try to give it more than a gentle underhand toss? I just thought it wouldn't have gone that far, and at the very least, would have sent shrapnel at Rachel and the red shirts holding her down. Next was the elevator shootout. Monroe had 4 or 5 guards accompanying him, maybe, with Randall and Rachel. I saw at least that many get blasted by the Mythbuster gun, and yet there's still machine gun fire being heard as Monroe forces his way into the VP bunker. Where did the reinforcements come from? And lastly, who was the tank top blonde on the floor when T. Miles gets to level 11? Now I know she wasn't part of the militia group. Were we to expect that she was one of the tower residents? I'm sure that scene was there to help show us the feelings that Miles has for Rachel, but it felt completely out of place to me. That being said, the rest of the show was so good, I don't even know where to start. I guess I'll go with the stuff they showed us that seems to be setting things up. We saw that Rachel was ready to leave Ben before the blackout, and that keeping the children safe is probably what kept them together. It also makes sense as to why she wasn't too upset when she learned that he had been killed. She also asks Monroe what he will do with Miles if she helps him, and I think that was meant to start showing us the feelings that she has that we already knew were there. I can see her intervening in the fight that will happen next week between Miles and Bass, and probably blurt out the fact that he's Charlie's father in the process. Now maybe Charlie will be watching it on a monitor and get the news without them knowing. I'm also curious to know if the news we got at the end was the big secret that Rachel was keeping. Knowing full well that the world could be burned by turning the power back on just doesn't seem to be that big of a reveal to me. She's been set up the last few episodes as the caring mother, willing to do anything to protect or avenge her kids. I sincerely hope that she's still after something much bigger hidden in the tower, maybe on level 12. I was glad to see the enemy she sided with was Monroe, though his sudden but inevitable remorseful confession left me wondering if he's going to be on our side for a while, or if it was Crazy Bass just saying the right things to get a fancy gun and get out of the bunker before Rachel found a way to kill him. He did fulfill his end of the bargain by saving Charlotte, but crazy is as crazy does. As much as I like to agree with Jeremy, I hope he doesn't die anytime soon. I'd love to see him find a son, and besides, someone will need to help Miles take down the Neville Republic. And lastly, where the heck did Randall go? He ducked out of the elevator just as the body started flying. My guess is that he made it to the stairwell and is trying to gain entry to level 12. That way, he can use the time machine to go back and try this all over again. From the corner of Shut Up and Stay Here, Jim in Wisconsin.
Jim was so close. Like he said, you were wrong about Monroe dying because he's got this purpose. He needs to go find his son.
He didn't say I was wrong. He said he hopes he doesn't die.
And then he throws in time travel.
You know, I know it would tick a lot of people off, but I would find it absolutely fascinating if we started next season the exact same way we started this season.
Oh, they'd have to explain that real fast.
Well,
for
like
the audience
Randall
not to run away.
goes back, and then he starts manipulating it again.
Mm-hmm. Like Groundhog Day.
Right. I think that would be interesting. Yeah, it definitely would tick a lot of people off because we've come so far, but I don't know. Sometimes I like time travel. I don't know.
I love time travel too. I might be willing to buy into it a little bit if it wasn't just so much fun to rib you about it every week.
Right.
You know?
I might be willing to let it go if it wasn't so much fun to rib with you. But.
That's fun. All right. So he said that the secret of what the power would do, which we didn't talk about this at all, really. You know, there was the last words of the episode where Grace reveals that, yeah, if the power or the switch is flipped, it could turn the power back on and give everything back, or it could set the world on fire.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't think that was that big of a deal, but we also don't know that was the big secret that she's been holding. So what do you think? Was it the secret that she's been holding? And then separate from that, was it a big deal for you, that particular revelation?
I will have to side with Jim. It didn't feel that huge to me. It is a big deal, but I think kind of where he's coming from is she's not going to do something to kill her daughter, and I don't think she's going to do that. So I don't think that she really considers it to be a huge possibility. And her 1 in a billion chance.
Well, she said it was a 1 in a billion. I mean, if that is literally the odds, it seems a little bit far fetched that they've been waiting down there for 15 years, and one day somebody didn't get drunk and just say, you know what, 1 in a billion chance, I'm going to go flip that switch or something. You know what I mean? I mean, those odds are not
bad.
I don't think those odds are. Do you really not turn the power back on for 15 years because there's a 1 in a billion chance that you'll destroy the planet in the process? No. Mm-mm. I don't think so. So was she exaggerating, or?
Yeah.
I don't know.
She's probably exaggerating, but at the same time, I don't think it was that big of a deal to her. So
I thought it was really all just one sort of big, somewhat subtle promotion for Maria Howell's new movie, Catching Fire.
Okay.
The sequel to Hunger Games.
Nice.
You like that?
Yeah, I like how
it's terrible.
Yeah. It is. But hey, so he was talking about the blonde as well, and he wanted to know if we expected that to be one of the people. I completely bought it as one
As
of
Rachel?
one of the tower people.
Oh, yeah, I did too.
So it didn't bother me at all that there was a dead person that wasn't on Monroe's side, because there's no way that they're not going to hit somebody.
There was enough spray going on, ricocheting in a corridor.
Yeah.
It's reasonably plausible that they took out a few of the tower people.
Mm-hmm. So
the odds were against them, but I can see where they got a couple.
Yeah. So
okay. Well, thank you, Jim. Appreciate that. Although I wish you weren't so much like Jeremy. I might respect you more.
Yeah.
All right.
He's Jim from Power On.
That's right. Everyone in the chat room has changed their name to some variation of Power On.
Except for the citizen of the Monroe Republic. He's
That's
the
right.
only wise one.
He refuses to conform. All right. Well, let's get to the next caller, which is Yogabon.
Hello, revolutionaries. I'm Yogabon, calling from the heart of the Georgia Federation, and I just have a crackpot theory I'd like to throw out there. What if, listen carefully now, what if Charlie is actually Bass's, a.k.a. Monroe's, child? That could be an interesting something. Think about it. The way she said Bass and the lipstick changed last night's episode, makes you wonder. Hoping you're all having a great, wonderful day, and it's beautiful down here in the Georgia Federation. It's summertime and out in the lake, and living is easy. This is Yoga Boss. Peace out.
Actually, Yoga Power On.
Yeah.
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 So this is the theory you threw out earlier, so I'm guessing you're still somewhat on board with this?
I threw it out because it was a thought that I had during the show, especially when they were in that room together. It's not something I definitely follow.
So you're not willing to put some kiwi on it?
No, I'm not willing to bet on it, but I think it would be an interesting twist, because we have been so led that we all have believed that it's Miles.
Right.
And nobody, I think, believes it's Ben's. But I'm sure there's some sane people out there who haven't jumped on the bandwagon yet. But
yeah,
I think, personally, as much as I don't think it's going to happen, I think it'd be an interesting twist, and I get a kick out of hypothesizing it.
It would be an interesting twist for sure. I hope one that is not true.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, it would be interesting in a strange way. I mean, if because right now Charlie wants to kill Monroe.
Right.
She was mad that Rachel was with him and not trying to kill him.
And
So-
she didn't try and kill him.
It would be kind of an interesting twist if Charlie kills him and then finds out, or if she wants to kill him, she's about to kill him and then finds,
Charlie,
what I mean?
I am your father.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
it's not true.
It's impossible. Yeah. She loses a hand. It could happen.
Hey,
Nanites grow it back.
I'm totally on board with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Yoga Bond, Yoga Power On. That's what we've done with your theory. I hope you don't mind. All right, so let's read a couple. What do you say? Do you want the short one or the not as short one?
I'll take the short one.
Okay.
This first one comes in from Steven. He says, just a quick observation during the shootout at the tower doors, going with the Star Wars characters Aaron is R2-D2 or Chewbacca. Charlie is somewhat Princess Leia. Miles is either C-3PO or Han Solo. I can't place a character for Nora. That's all I have between you guys. I think you could round them out. Excuse me. If not, there's always time travel. Amen.
I might put Nora as the Chewbacca.
Yeah, I can't do a good Chewbacca.
That was pretty weak.
Yeah, I can't roll my tongue.
Miles would be Han Solo.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's definitely Han. Charlie being Princess Leia works for me.
How about Tom being Lando?
Well, he could be, but they're not old friends. Well, okay, they are.
Yeah, let's see.
Okay, I can buy that.
You like that?
And he betrayed him at one point.
Right.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. You're still sticking with Rachel being Darth.
Heck yeah.
Monroe being... No, Monroe is not Palpatine, because that would put him in,
I think Randall's Palpatine. If Randall survives.
Yes.
So it's looking a whole lot like Monroe's going to make it, Randall's going to die,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just hoping it's a misdirection of Monroe bites
Yeah,
it.
Randall's like the commander of the Death Star. It's just a matter of time before he gets force choked and he's dead.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to say, I don't really think Monroe's going to die, but I'm so sticking with it.
And you can't back out, man.
I'm not backing out, but
Yeah.
I mean, the arguments everybody's making are totally, but
Mhm.
I'm hoping that's all a misdirection.
Okay.
So,
It could be.
and he's got to die, and he can be. He's not Palp, so
No,
Yeah.
not powerful
We're
enough for Palpatine.
we're just force joking.
I would say of the characters, Randall would seem to be the most logical there.
Okay.
All right, Stephen, thanks for that. Appreciate that. This one comes in from Kevin. Daryl and Jeremy, great episode of Revolution, lots of action, and a really nice setup to the season finale. With that being said, I did have some thoughts about the episode. First, what happened to Rachel really wanting to kill Monroe? Why didn't she shoot him after she saved Charlie? And Jeremy is like, yeah, I'm agreeing. Let's see. He says, I guess she changed her mind. I thought it was funny how he called Charlie Charlotte. Do you think Miles will finally be able to pull the trigger and kill Monroe? I don't think he has it in him. What happened to Randall? Did he get killed by the inhabitants of the tower, or did they capture him? Did they know all along that he was there in the tower and trying to access level 12? I like the plot line of Tom trying to take over the Monroe Republic. I wonder if that was his plan all along, or if he realized an opportunity with Monroe in the tower. That may have been why he and Jason did their sabotage mission. I noticed that Tom took the pendant from the chopper when they landed. I wonder if he still has it. Just some thoughts on a great episode. Keep up the great work. From a citizen of the Monroe Republic in upstate New York. All right. I wonder if that is Citizen of Monroe, or excuse me, Citizen of Power On that we have in the chat room right here. Either way, thank you, Kevin, for sending that in. As far as I know, Tom still has the power. Randall weaseled away somewhere, undoubtedly in my mind, trying to access level 12. What else did he talk about here that we can comment on?
Well, Monroe calling Charlie Charlotte.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I think that's when it really went, oh, whoa, for
That
me,
he could
that
be the
he
father?
could be her father. Because, yeah, he called her by her real name.
Yeah.
I mean, her mom doesn't even do that. And
Mhm.
to me, in my head, dads always call their daughters by their whole name. And then, except for...
No, go ahead. I was just thinking about something.
Okay, I just kind of... To me, that's kind of the way it is. They'll call them by their whole name, and then... like their friends and their mom will call them by a nickname.
Right. No, I could. You're right. That is certainly something that is pretty common. I was just remembering that Miles and Monroe were stationed in South Carolina. So what if on some weekend trip to Charlotte, North
Nice.
Carolina,
I like where you're going.
Rachel conceived the baby? We just don't know which one of the boys took the trip with her. And so
Mamma
it
mia.
was, but he knows where she was conceived at and where her namesake comes from, and so that's why he called her Charlotte. Not necessarily because she is his, but because he knows a little something extra that she doesn't know.
I'm totally enjoying that theory.
You like that?
Yeah.
All right.
It's a good theory. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Or it was Monroe's mom's name.
Named after her unknown grandmother.
Yeah.
That's a possibility too. Now he also talks about what about the people? Did they know, or did Randall know that they were there the whole time? We have someone else that is calling in about that, so I'm going to reserve comments. I don't want to cover that now. If we can cover it then, but it does talk about Tom taking over his sabotage, his coup, if you will. I think that's Tom thinking on his feet, knowing that Monroe and several of his top guys are indisposed at the moment. Opportunity is knocking at his door if he can just get loose. I think that is definitely what was happening there. What's going to be interesting, though, is when Monroe comes out of the tower alive, and Tom has killed the only guy who's loyal to Monroe, and now has the rest of the surviving Monroe militia there encamped at the tower on his side. Are they going to seize Monroe the moment he walks out? Because Monroe doesn't have anybody left. All of his guys he took in there with him are dead.
I'm sure he has more people. I mean, the captain, he said they had 12 guys at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't act like they had everybody in the camp.
No, but I think that it would be dominoes falling quickly if Tom was able to get rid of the major or whoever it was. You know what I mean? So I am of the opinion that Tom is one guy away from being able to take control of that militia unit camped outside the tower.
Right.
And Monroe is inside with not a single friend.
Mm-hmm. Except for Rachel now.
No. Are you kidding me?
She's crazy. She's just as crazy as he is.
They're not friends.
Well, she didn't kill him.
It was very much a little Coyote and Roadrunner scene that we had there. He was like, look, get me out of here, and then you can go back to trying to kill me.
See, to me, that just doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, I'll pretend to get you out of there, I'll kill you, and then I'll move on. I mean, if my intention is to kill you, I'm not going to tell you when I'm trying to kill you.
Well, of course not.
So I don't know why she just didn't shoot him in the back when... I don't know.
I don't know either.
The whole...
Maybe she didn't want to get blood splatter on Charlie, because it would have gone through him and splattered all over Charlie.
Or she could have shot him when they were leaving the room.
But then we wouldn't have got the nice build-up scene here between Miles and Monroe.
Yeah, and nothing's going to happen with that scene. Miles can't stomach that. I think that... Did he say that? Yeah, I don't think he has it in him. That's from
yeah.
Citizen of the Monroe
I
Republic.
think Miles has it in him to kill him.
I don't. I think Miles is too weak. I think Rachel is too weak. It's gonna have to be Charlie, or Tom, or
Rachel.
Rachel can't do it. Rachel has already proved that she won't do it.
She pulled the pin on that grenade.
But she's changed.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm mad at Rachel right now.
Perhaps. All right. Well, thank you, Kevin, for writing in. We do appreciate it. Good to
He
hear
has a
from you.
real name.
Yeah, Kevin, and citizen of the Monroe Republic in upstate New York.
I thought he was just a citizen in the Monroe Republic.
No, he does have a name. Did you really think that his parents named him a citizen of Monroe Republic in upstate New York? Because apparently he'd been waiting his whole life for a show like this.
I thought he was just like Yogabon. We don't call her by her real name.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what her real name is?
I'm not going to divulge that on our podcast.
That's because you don't know.
Hey, you don't know, I don't know.
I do know. All right, well, let's move on to Barb.
Hello, Daryl and Jeremy. This is Barb from Phoenix, a.k.a. Tangier 14, with feedback on Children of Men. British author P.D. James wrote Children of Men, a novel involving an Oxford professor who was both well-off and intelligent, and who reluctantly became involved with a group of dissidents in a bleak future world. Very had to make difficult choices that could affect the future of mankind. The underlying message was around the transforming power of hope and how good characters, when tempted toward evil, dealt with their choices. This week I have some random musings. Rachel killed a man for food for her children, then had a conscious attack several weeks later when she saw people lying dead in the street. They admit that while she is a mama bear, I still don't understand her. She embraces her children, abandons her children, has a plan with Miles, wants to separate from her husband, wants to kill Monroe and die, wants to kill Monroe and live. I want to find out more in Season 2 about exactly who Rachel is and what makes her tick. She's an enigma. Neville in charge. It was fun to watch him manipulate his way out of captivity this week, but it was also interesting to see that he was truly moved by Jason's words. He takes care of his men. And I believe that Jason wasn't doing that to play along. I think he begrudgingly meant it. It will be interesting to see if Tom takes over the Monroe Republic in Season 2, and if so, how Jason reacts to that. Tom's territory just doesn't have quite the same ring.
All right, I think she got cut off a little bit there, but she did at least finish that thought. Tom's territory definitely doesn't sound like the Monroe, militia or the...
Tom's terrific territory. Or terribly terrific territory.
Yeah. Nevilleville, I don't know. I don't know what you would call it.
Yeah.
Now, she talked about Children of Men. It's a film. It's a 2006 film based on a 1992 book. And the book is by P.D. James, and the film, like I said, is a 2006 science fiction film. I'm intrigued about this film now.
Yeah.
I didn't realize in my research, I didn't really do any research on it, on the episode title. I typically do. For this one, I didn't. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad she called in with that information. And I'm glad, too, that I actually did remember earlier that it was Barb, and I finally didn't screw up Barb's feedback. Do you know how good I feel about that.
Yay.
It's been 3 weeks since I've gotten her feedback right.
Yeah. Well, she talks about Edward, and I thought that was kind of interesting, about how she doesn't change, or she changes, rather, so much. Edward Enigma. The Riddler.
I'm with you.
Okay, all right.
I'm with you.
You just give me a look.
I wasn't going to play along.
Oh, okay. Well, fine. Anywho, just about how she does one thing and she does the complete opposite next. And one of the things that went through my mind is what went through hers when, we see her kill for food, and then, like she said, a couple weeks later, she's sad that this kid's starving. And it's just, maybe she just likes to help the little kids, the innocent in her mind. But I don't know. She can be very cold, but at the same time very loving. I think that's
she
very
probably
interesting.
believes that children of the future.
I'm not going to play along.
Fair enough. All right, Barb. Well, thank you for calling in. We do appreciate that. Let's get back to the feedback, and we're hearing again from this week, 2 times in a row now, from Coop.
Hi, Daryl and Jeremy. It's Coop from Texas. Feedback for Children of Men. By now, we've had time to discuss all the great lost references, like Aaron entering the lottery number, and the great red shirt analogies. The poor soldiers getting off the elevator first, never being down with the important players. By the way, I love how Aaron followed the plan to the letter. So where are we? Dan burns the Book of Secrets and vows to protect the remaining generations. All the tech is on site, but what will be the significance of the tower itself? Turn on the lights or take the chance of killing everyone? I think we know how that will end. Our band of brothers will trek out across the nation to find the needed tech support to fix what will be unleashed. New challenges. As the tower door closed, the Nevilles are now reunited on the same side and will have command of the troops as our team emerges from the tower. So much for Miles and Tom becoming best buds again. Also, how did Randall not notice all those people living just below him on level 11? Well, this is Coop from Texas signing off, where we always hide our blueprints in the monkey cage.
Nice sign off. All right, so he's the one that talked about how did Randall not know that there was this group of people living just a few floors below him. It sounds to me like Randall really only had access to the ground floor,
right?
Because the elevators had been shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's the question about the stairwells, and I don't know, but if maybe he doesn't have access to the security feeds happening, maybe they shut the security feeds down for level 11 and below. I'm trying to come up with some reasons here, but it is a very good question, I think.
Well, the answer to the question is obvious. Randall did know.
Randall did know?
And
you think so?
That's why he brought the militia, and that's why he slipped away during the firefight. He needed a distraction so he could get into level 12 without anybody seeing him or stopping him.
I don't know about that.
No?
I think it's definitely possible that he did know.
He had to have known.
That they were, he thought they were all on the same team.
Right.
But they were not. They were, obviously, they locked him out. They were not on Randall's side.
Randall couldn't get to level 12. Why couldn't he get to level 12 if the stairwells were open? If he couldn't, because they were open, it would mean somebody was blocking him. He would have to know that his enemy was down there.
Yeah.
Which would mean he'd need somebody with power and guns to stop them or to fight them. I have a hard time conceptualizing, because I don't think he even ever admitted he didn't know they were there. The people who didn't know that they were there are Rachel and stuff. Randall, I think he's in control of this situation still. We talked about last week, at least I believe it was last week, whether or not he was still in control.
Yeah, I like this a lot, Jeremy. The more I'm kind of processing this, thinking about when they got into the tower, they looked at the monitors, and he says, we can kill everyone with a push of a button, but we got to get down to level 12.
Right.
Rachel immediately was like, Randall, why did you just say that?
Right.
But if Randall knows that what's preventing him from getting to level 12 is the people that are occupying floor 11, he's sending the military down there to get rid of his.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think you're spot on, Jeremy. Yeah.
I'm
That's
really,
why he went to go get Monroe to
Yeah.
bring him. Yeah, I think you're absolutely perfect on.
So
yeah.
I think Randall is going to be a lot darker.
Okay.
And again, I think something's going to happen with him. I know it's set up to look like he's going to be the one to die, but reasons like this are what's keeping me holding on to Monroe dying, Randall taking over,
Mm-hmm.
And things like that. So
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I like
I
that,
don't
Jeremy. That's really good. Okay, so he also, talked about what might be unleashed next week, and they're going to have to, season 2 might be figuring, he called it tech support for what is unleashed.
Right.
I think it's very reasonable to think that something is going to be unleashed in some way, and I'm not saying unleashed like it's going to destroy the world or anything like that, but there will be, the plot has to go in an interesting direction now. So what happens next week will set the stage for next year.
Right.
So in that context, yes, something will be quote unquote unleashed next week.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why they would burn the book though.
That bothered me too.
It really actually it almost ruined the episode for me when they did that, because it's like, whether or not you want to turn the power on, somebody might at some point in the future.
And there's so much knowledge in that book. Take the book, lock it up somewhere, or
let's not destroy the only, I guess, guide book that you have to this building you're living in. I mean, there might be things in there that have nothing to do with turning the power on.
They must have seen Dr. Warren as like their mortal enemy, to want to destroy all this work that she had done, all this knowledge that she had put down on the paper. I don't understand why you would immediately burn this thing.
Right. Without prejudice.
Yeah, exactly. I was disappointed in that too. All right. Well, Coop, thank you so much for calling in. Let's move on to a first-time caller, Joseph.
Hi, my name is Joseph. I'm calling from New York City for Revolution. This episode tonight, I feel, was the best episode by far. We get introduced to new characters that seem to play a bigger role in things that are going on within the world, and they'd rather let the world stay the way it is right now than take the chance of actually turning the lights back on, because it could lead to the world, quote unquote, being set on fire. I like the way the show's going. It leaves me wondering, after the next episode, the finale of season 1, where exactly things will go, if they're, what if it's just everything that's happening is just within the world itself, or if maybe this will lead into some bigger space, extraterrestrial type situation where we make contact with aliens and they might have something to do with it. It's their technology. I don't know. But I like that. I'm not sure what's going to happen next, and I can't wait to see what happens after tonight. So that's all I had to say. And this show is one of the best shows that are out there right now.
All right. Joseph, thanks for calling in. Always love hearing from first-time callers. He brought up some really good things that we have not talked about up to this point. One is that we have all of these brand new characters that got brought into the show this week. There was a whole lot of people in Towerville when they finally got down to where they were all living.
Right.
A lot of red shirts.
Of course.
It could be setting up a bloodbath next week. But I don't think they're all going to be red shirts. I think that we do have Dan and a few others that could stand to be some really interesting long-term characters. They're basically, to go back to, who was it earlier that said, what was our first feedbacker? It was Yo-Yo. She talked about the tail section on Lost. That gave us a whole bunch of new characters. Now, they did eventually kill almost all of them off.
Right.
That's kind of what we got this week. We got the tail section, and we got a whole new cast of characters to use for a variety of reasons, long-term and short-term.
Right. I think most of them are going to be red shirts.
I do too.
Dan, I don't think Dan will make it to the next episode.
I wouldn't be surprised based on the track record, but I do think that he could have a short. I don't see him as a long-term character, but I could see him sticking around and giving us even like 2 or 3 episodes next season,
like Jeremy, something like that.
Yes.
Okay. Minor support, but
yeah,
I think that I don't know what's in store for those characters. I think a few of them are going to definitely be pivotal in the next coming episode or 2, but beyond that, I think. And kind of what I'm hoping for the show is more of a move towards what we've seen on the computer screens. We've seen other parts of the world.
That was my next question. Do you think we're going to move into that where we see they come into the storyline more than just an image on a screen?
I do think we will see some of them. I don't know how. I don't know how quickly, but I think those characters and new characters from other parts of the world are going to be...
I could think it might be possible that there are almost a coalition of bunkers.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot, but a few. You know, they showed Tokyo and London and Paris and it was Venice, Italy, or somewhere in Italy was the other one. You know, those could be a coalition of locations where there is another bunker with another group of people that they may or may not have the current ability to communicate with. Maybe they can if they get to level 12. They can communicate with those people. But it could open up a whole variety. And they could either be American, people, they could be another being operated by American people, so there wouldn't be a language barrier, or it could be that there are internationals, occupying these facilities.
So the one thing I do know is there's so many ways this could go.
That's right. He even brought in extraterrestrials, aliens. I don't see this show going the direction of aliens. I kind of hope it doesn't, personally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll be interested to see how they make it work if they do bring aliens. I love alien shows. I'm a big fan of Falling Skies. But we'll see. I just don't get that vibe, but I don't get the time travel vibe either, and Jeremy's all over that.
Yeah. I just get a time travel vibe, period. But aliens are actually the one thing that I don't want to see for this show.
Yeah.
They could do Groundhog's Day, and I'll be happy with it. They can do a lot of different things, and I'll be happy. But aliens, I think, almost in situations like this, feel like a bit of a cop-out. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. But
that's how I feel about time travel.
Yeah. Time travel is definitely a cop-out at points, but I don't know. I just like it so much. That
I'm a big time travel fan, but
I don't know.
All right. Well, Joseph, thanks for calling in. Good to hear from you. The first-time caller. Hopefully we'll hear from you again. We'd love to get your thoughts in the future. All right, we have 2 more left. This one is coming in from Mark.
Hey there, revolutionaries. This is Mark from Ontario, Canada here. Here are my random thoughts regarding Children of Men. Wow, what can I say? This episode just blew me away. I don't know if it's because the writers and actors knew they were coming back for next season or what. Regardless, I think everyone stepped up their game for this one. It makes me even more anxious for next week's episode, even though I know we're probably going to be left with a huge cliffhanger over the summer. Now, on to the episode. What happened to the pendant Tom took from the helicopter? We never saw it after he put it in his pocket. Is young Captain Riley Monroe's long-lost son? That would be interesting if he was part of the mutiny, only to discover he's trying to overthrow his father. Where did Randall disappear to during the firefight? I didn't know Nora was that good a knife thrower. It was nice to see a MacBook on the Vice President's desk. It's good to know the government does some things right. Do you think the multiple arguments between Rachel and Ben was the reason she left? Perhaps she left to go find Miles in hope of rekindling their old relationship, only to have that fall through when she arrived in Philadelphia. Why didn't Charlie or Nora pick up any of the weapons from the fallen shooters? And why did the guys that captured Rachel, Aaron, and Charlie only take their weapons after they arrived back at the community base? Do you think the slim chance of setting the world on fire, as Grace puts it, is that shutting off the nanites would cause them to suddenly and simultaneously release all the power they've been absorbing for all these years, causing a massive overflow? And I can't believe they left Miles and Sebastian standoff where they did until next week. That was maddening. Oh well, that's it for my thoughts on this episode. But before I go, I'd like to give a great big thank you to Daryl for all his help and advice in getting me set up to do my own podcast. Within the next couple of weeks, I'll start publishing an episode recap podcast on the BBC America show Orphan Black. followed by a second podcast at the end of June on the new CBS series Under the Dome, which debuts June 24th. If any of you listeners are interested in either of these television series, give me a follow on Twitter at Solo Talk Media to be kept informed of what's happening with the podcasts. And for those of you who haven't seen Orphan Black, both BBC America and Space in Canada will be showing all 10 episodes of Season 1 back-to-back on June 1st starting at noon Eastern and finishing with the Season 1 finale at 9 p.m. Well, that's it for me. Until next time, keep your candles burning. This is Mark from Ontario, Canada.
One of us. One of us. That's right. Mark is now one of us. He's a podcaster.
Huzzah.
And I'm excited about it. I have been giving him some advice and stuff on how to get his show up and running, so looking forward to that. And Orphan Black comes on right after Doctor Who, which I do a Doctor Who show right after Doctor Who I do that for TV Talk. So I haven't been watching Orphan Black, but now that he says it comes back on, or they're going to re-show it starting June 1, I might have to check that out because it does look interesting. But yeah, thanks Mark for calling in, and good luck with all your new stuff. I wrote down one of the thoughts that he had about the show, and that was what would cause the Earth to catch fire. Mm-hmm. You know, he supposed that it could be all of the nanites suddenly and simultaneously releasing all of their energy.
Right.
That seems like really the most logical cause to me. Right. What do you think?
That's the only cause that was in my head. I can't think of another reason.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe the cannons that can annihilate one little person or whatever can just ignite the world, but I don't know. Which leads me to wonder if there's anything to do with satellites or ion cannons now, because maybe they can just remotely control nanites and
perhaps
people up. I don't know. Sorry, I'm going off on a different direction there, but I don't know. He talked about the MacBook.
Of course.
Bleh.
It's the only way to go.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was in amazing condition for being 15 years old.
Well, it's a MacBook.
Yeah.
They build those things quality.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. That's why they're so expensive. One of the reasons why they're so expensive. That and Apple has to just an ungodly markup or margin that they live by. But the other PC manufacturers have a terrible markup that they have to live by. But they are quality machines.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Also, the weapons, and I think one of our listeners mentioned it earlier. It may have been Jim, with why didn't or he didn't believe the blonde was one of them because she didn't have a weapon, that sort of thing. He wonders why they didn't pick up the weapons, and I was kind of actually hypothesizing that, I guess, floor 11ers, we'll just call them 11ers for now, picked up the weapons that had been dropped after the firefight.
Possibly.
There was a couple of minutes. Nobody picks anything up. The only reason I can think of why is somebody already picked it up.
Yeah. It's a good observation, though.
So.
Yeah.
But then they ran from an elevator. Do we even know who was on the elevator that they ran from?
I assume it was the floor 11ers.
Do you? I just don't know why they didn't stand and wait for them to go ding, just open up on the elevator.
Oh no, man! If you walk down and you see blood splatter everywhere,
true,
and then the elevator is coming, you run.
I guess
I would run.
All right.
Yeah. All right, Mark. Thank you for that. We have one more, and this one comes in from Sean.
This is Sean calling from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This week's episode, I give it a 8.5 out of 10. I just have a few thoughts. My first one is the Tom and Jason storyline. I really liked it this week. And if we flash back to the beginning of the series, the first half, Julie, Tom's wife, hinted to him that he could eventually take over and replace Monroe. Well, I'm thinking that she kind of helped implement him into the Georgia Federation to hopefully one day get into the position to take out Monroe. And I think we're starting to see that unfold now. The next thing I want to touch on is Rachel and Monroe while they were in the vice president's bunker. I kind of think that this is a turning point for Monroe, just realizing he does have a son out there and he wants to find him and be a better person, so to speak. Not that it's going to happen right away, but in time I think that's what could wind up happening. And also, during that whole scene, if for a split second it crossed my mind that Monroe might actually be Charlie's father. Then I kind of looked at it for a second, it was unbelievable. Just for the wordage, she said, "You were never there for me. How could I trust you now?" So I just kind of want to throw that out there. That I did think about that for a split second. The last thing is Aaron during one of the final scenes is he mentioned his wife when he was trying to explain why they need not to burn Dr. Warren's journal because of medicine. But he mentioned his wife, which I just think is a good thing, and I still think that we might see her again in a future episode. Anyway, that's all I have. This is Sean from the Monroe Republic. Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Bye.
All right, so he thinks we're going to see Priscilla again. It's a possibility that they did bring her back in. At least, and like he said, that she was mentioned. So I guess it's possible.
Yeah, I don't think they have plans to kill her character off. I don't necessarily think we'll see her again, but I don't think they're ruling it out as writers. So they might use it at some point in the future. I thought it was interesting that Aaron did mention his wife, just because it's still on his mind, and I kind of like that he lost his wife because he couldn't protect her, because the only way he could protect her was technology.
That's true when you put it that way, and I meant to mention this somebody earlier. It was let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them ago. 1, 2, 3, 4. That would have been Coop. Yeah, Coop mentioned that Aaron followed the plan exactly. That was the plan that he and Rachel had set out. But you mentioned something in the last podcast about him. Was he looking for Grace this entire time? Yes, he was.
Right.
And when you think about this here, he's, I won't say he has a one-track mind, but he's a very focused individual. You don't get into where he was in life and have the mental ability that he has and to create the things that he has created without being a very focused person, being very detailed. And I think that's revealing itself here in some of the things that people are observing in Aaron. He had instructions to go find Grace Beaumont.
Right.
That instruction had not yet been completed. It's almost like he's a programmer. It's almost like a program run until complete, and it had not yet been completed.
Right.
He's multitasking and doing something else at the same time, but this instruction has not yet been fulfilled.
Right.
And then, Coop mentioned him doing the plan with Rachel, fulfilling and planning that or following the plan all the way out. So, so when you think about Priscilla, that's still obviously very much on his mind. That is, I don't know the right verbiage here, but that he's focused on that.
Yeah. And you talk about how focused he is, and kind of one thing I was thinking earlier I didn't mention. I'm hoping he has an eidetic memory, or whatever Sheldon Cooper has from The Big Bang.
Sure.
Because he's gone through the journal. Maybe he can remember it.
Maybe
I'm
so.
assuming he's a genius. So
he could be a generous genius.
That's true. He was a millionaire. He could have been a philanthropist.
That's true.
Anywho. So,
turning point for Monroe? I'll still say no.
Yeah, I'm going to say no. I like how he also picked up on Monroe possibly being Charlie's father.
Yeah, he did.
It seems like a lot of people actually picked up on that, so maybe, again, it was another misdirection. But
well, look, I think they're doing some things here. They're bringing... He mentioned Julie, what she said to Tom earlier in the season about him taking over. I think they've been planting these seeds, and they don't want us to figure everything out. So is Charlie the daughter of Ben or Miles or Monroe? All of those things, all of those theories are out on the table. A lot of things have been thrown out. Seeds have been planted. Some of them will bear fruit and some of them won't. And I love it. It's giving us a lot of things to talk and speculate about.
Yeah. And Barb also mentions that he still has the Monkey Lab book.
The Monkey Lab book, that was just a blueprint, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it might have something in it.
It could. That's true. All right, well, that's the feedback that we received for this week. So much good stuff, both from first-time contributors and repeat contributors. Thank you to everybody who sent in feedback. Your ideas are always better than ours, and we appreciate it so much. If you want to send in feedback for next week's podcast, which we are doing the finale podcast. If you want to join us for the live show, we're going to record that live on June the 6th at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Come over to goldenspiralmedia.com, and click on the live show link there at the top of the page. Like I said, that's June the 6th at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. That'll be the deadline for sending in feedback for the finale will be June 6th at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.
All right, that's D-Day at 4 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah, that works. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So send in your feedback by that time. You can email it over to feedback@goldenspiralmedia.com, or you can call us on the Golden Spiral Media voice feedback line at 304-837-2278. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/goldenspiralmedia and twitter.com/GSM podcast, which of course is the segue into our Rev Twit poll. Alrighty, I do have Twitter pulled up this week, Jeremy. Can you believe it?
I can.
I'm actually getting better at this. Alright, so this week's question was, what will happen if they get down to level 12? So good speculation, right? When obviously none of us know. All shot in the dark here. Alright, let me scroll down here to the bottom. I passed it. Okay. Zort70 says the smoke monster will get off the island unless somebody finds Jacob. And then he says, serious answer, unless they are protected, somehow I think a group of intelligent nanites will do some serious damage. Zeppelin Driver says they will turn the power back on despite Grace's warning. Unless the monster gets them, open casting call for red shirts. Tangier14 says Wizard Aaron will power up the super collider and the cliffhanger will be whether it works or creates a black hole. Test315 says not what they expect. I have to say it, they'll set the world on fire. Interesting. Hightos MX says, oh, that's in Spanish. I can't read that. Let me see if I can translate this. Let's see here. Google Translate. And paste it in there. It's picking it up as Italian, but it's not translating it.
Do you need to select English on the right side?
No. There it goes. It detected Spanish translating to Italian for some reason. All right. It doesn't make sense to me. At least to me, every time I use the RevTwit hashtag, pay me something, then every silly thing I put here makes sense, and even the fans. I don't know what that means. That could be a spam. I'm not sure. All right, we'll move on. Jim in Wisconsin says Randall will set off a chain reaction, and Team Miles will turn off the power at the tower to stop it. And then he says the cliffhanger will be if they succeeded or not, hence the title, The Dark Tower. I like that. It's similar to what you said. You and Jim, I tell you what, it's dangerous how much you guys are alike. Let's see. Toa of Pi says when they reach level 12, they will gain some... What? Is this a... What is this, Jeremy? Is this a D&D thing? Is that what that is, D&D?
What? Strength, Dex, Constitution, Intelligent Wisdom, and...
COS?
Okay, I lose a nerd point. What's COS?
I don't know. All right, well, so they'll gain some points as well as a skill point and may roll an additional 6-sided die.
All right.
That's way too nerdy for me, Toa. Somewhat nerdy for Jeremy. He does play D&D. Sebastian Stalker says level 12 is a portal to Joss Whedon universe.
Yes.
Team Revolt Now retweeted me. Marksman Design says, don't have a clue, but whatever is down there, we won't see it until next season. Okay. Hannah Evil Regal says, Aaron will know how to flip the switch and will be left wondering if the world burned or if the lights turned on. The Unibeefer says they'll find a Scottish guy pressing a button to keep the world from burning. I love it. That's good. Princess T. Taylor, apparently how to turn the lights will be written on a chalkboard since Dan burned the journal, or an actual light switch. That'll be funny. A little power switch.
Mm-hmm.
Hetrix211 says, I think we will see everything that the gang fears, and for Monroe once at his expense, along with a red button. Chiod Zero says, if they get down to level 12, they are going to find weapons that use the nanites, something like Dr. Warren used. I Am a TV says, when they get to level 12, the cliffhanger will happen. We might have to wait for the evolution in Revolution until next season. Yogabon says, a little paper note will be tied to a teacup saying, drink this. Nice. TJM 5694 says, we won't know exactly what happens this season. The ending cliffhanger will be the tower turning on and us guessing. Alternacat says, on level 12, we will find Desmond Hume playing chess with Sam Weiss. Nice. And the final one, the Unibeefer, I think he already said something, but he comes back and says, maybe there's just one giant nanite down there. So a lot of people were saying we're not really going to find out until next season, and I think that's definitely very likely that is the cliffhanger. Something happens down there, whether it be a switch gets flipped or a button gets pushed or something, and then that's where the season ends. It could be like Barb predicted, in that the power comes back on and that's the final scene. Mm-hmm. Or it could be like Jeremy lamely predicted, in that the final scene will be Monroe getting shot.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think's down there?
I think it's a power switch. I think it's going to be interesting. As for weapons being down there to find that use nanites, I'm actually, when I heard that tweet, I was thinking, well, maybe that's what the railguns already do.
Yeah, could be.
That would explain why they're not reloading.
Yeah. I'll say, like I mentioned earlier, that it's just the command center for controlling everything, and it's too dangerous because of the power that is at the fingertips down there.
Yeah. That's
the real danger. And who controls that? Controls the world. King of the Hills type of thing.
King of the Hill.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
There's a bunch of propane tanks down there, folks. 3 of you will get that joke. Probably more than
the
3.
rednecks will. I say that because I'm a redneck too.
Uh-huh.
So,
all right. Anything else? Well, that's a good response. There's lots of responses to the Twitter poll question this week. All right, well, I think that's going to do it. Once again, we want to remind you, we didn't mention this last time, but it's not a thing we do necessarily every time, but this is a listener-supported podcast. We'd love to have your support. You can go over to goldenspiralmedia.com/support. There you'll find all of the links to our affiliate accounts, as well as an opportunity, should you so desire, to give us a donation to help do what we do here at Golden Spiral Media with bandwidth and we have cameras and lighting and stuff that we do here for our live show. Also we make trips to Comic-Con and bring back podcasts based on those experiences, and all of that is funded through Golden Spiral Media. So if you want to help what we do here, we would surely appreciate that. Go over to goldenspiralmedia.com/support. Looking forward to the finale next week. Once again, Thursday next week at 8 o'clock Eastern Time over at goldenspiralmedia.com. Click on the live show link at the top of the page.
It's our podcast, not the actual episode airing live.
That's
Monday.
correct. That's when we do our show. Those actual shows airing Monday at the normal time.
I just wanted to clear that up.
So. Yep. All right. Anything else, Jeremy?
Nothing else, Daryl.
All right. Well, I don't feel nearly as lame about my power on sign off from last time, because everyone in the chat room has now embraced the power on, and it's looking like it might have been one of the more genius things I've ever done.
Blah blah blah.
But this time I'll say, I may be a horrible person, but at least I'm loyal to my people.
I couldn't come up with anything, so I'm going to be lame. Power off.
The Revolution Podcast and Golden Spiral Media are not associated with Bad Robot Productions, Kripke Enterprises, Warner Brothers, or NBC. Golden Spiral Media's use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided within United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use. For advertising opportunities, live show, and other Golden Spiral Media podcast productions, visit goldenspiralmedia.com. Copyright 2013, Golden Spiral Media.